I have a crazy friend. Let's call him Frank. Now, Frank has always been a bit strange, but now he's telling me that he's Clint Eastwood. For background, this isn't the craziest thing happening in the world right now. About 2 weeks ago, a large black cube showed up over San Francisco, and it's just been floating there over the city. Well, once this thing showed up, Frank called me up and wanted to meet in a cafe in the city, right under the thing. Frank is a good time, always coming up with wild ideas and sometimes making me laugh. I thought he was about to do that again, but no, he was going to blow my mind. Frank started telling me about when he was 16. He was working on making incredibly bad music on his computer that he came up with a code. It was a musical code that he says could identify him in the future in case they decided to make a clone of him. That clone would be able to hear the song, say the correct name, and be allowed to live. Again, normally I would think Frank was making a joke, but these were strange times, and how does this make him Clint Eastwood? He continued to tell me that the musical phrase that he had made actually worked. About 100 years in the future, he was one of the very first people brought back after being dead by one of his descendants. It took over 1,000 tries, but they were able to make a teenage version of himself, get him to respond correctly, and know that they had made a successful clone. I'm about to leave Frank with the bill now, since this is just madness. But he lures me back by saying he can tell me what's floating above the city. Sure, Frank, you absolute nut. Apparently, Frank was also the first person to be transferred into a computer another few years after that, and was sent out in a space probe, out into the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Nearing the heat death of the universe, Frank had changed over the millennia. His small space probe had become a huge cube that encompassed everything human left in the universe. After all that time, Frank still longed for the past. He traveled back and injected himself into Clint Eastwood as a child so that he could live during the greatest moment of humankind. Frank exerted some control over Eastwood in his youth, but after the good, the bad, and the ugly, was unable to stop Eastwood from going his own way and turning down once upon a time in the West. I tell Frank he's going to need to show the receipts for this, unless this is some new joke he's working on, and he does one better. Into the restaurant walks a 90-year-old Clint Eastwood, who sits down right beside us. My jaw needed to be scraped off the floor. He said hi to Frank and just smiled at me. I looked out the window, and the black cube that had been sitting in the sky for weeks just vanished. So that's my crazy friend Frank. Apparently he has seen the end of all things is eternal and is partially Clint Eastwood. Maybe I'm the crazy one.